Thank you. Okay. And you're going to cut your thing off, right? Okay. All right. Oh, do I need to share this? Oh, no, you got it. Okay. Okay, for this last month, a lot's happened. A lot of it's on the restoration front that Ben will cover. So I'm just touch on some of the things that are, more on my side of things. Really recently, lots of outreach. It's just been a lot of just this giving and sharing. I just came back from Confluence, which is the Western Collaborative Conservation Networks meeting. So it was sort of any group associated with collaboration in the West was at Chico Hot Springs for the last few days. The Life in the Land film series was kind of the meat of that conference, and then conversations about collaboration around those films. Obviously, you all know The Big Hole Valley was one of those 4 films. So yesterday I had a full day of talking and answering questions, discussing collaboration with people. I had a couple takeaways, and I'm trying to be very tactful in those groups, but one of my main messages is I am getting really tired of being asked to share our story and not seeing any financial benefit from these organizations. It's just not coming back. So, this is being felt kind of among the grassroots organizations. We're doing the work, we're having success, we're being asked to share, and they won't even pay for my damn hotel room, right? And so I'm taking people to task on that. I'm just really kind of out of patience. And so I'm trying to keep it together. I was telling some of my folks in confidence I was a volcano of salt that I had to like slowly dilute over the weekend just to not piss people off. But it's real. It's real. And I had some really constructive conversations with people that get it. And they're asking, how do we do collaboration? I was like, well, you can start, right, by offering the Blackfeet woman who's a single mother some daycare so she can come and attend and pay her way. Things like that. It's at least a gesture. But if we're going to talk about collaboration, it's from the bottom up, and it has to be supported, right? This work isn't going to happen just by sitting in conference rooms. It's actually boots on the ground, conversations, face-to-face interaction. That's where the action is, but you don't see the finances of this system of conservation reflected in that, right? So I would like to shake that up a little bit and really push for a floor. Like, I think groups like ours just need a guaranteed floor of funding to keep doing what we're doing. Because the guy getting bit by a rancher's healer in the back of the heel, in the back of the leg is me, not the person running the conference. At some point, that's part of what it takes to do this work, right? So anyway, I'm gonna try to keep that volcano of salt contained within me, not share it too much, but it's real. Ben went to the American Fisheries Society and presented on our French Creek project. That was a project that won an award from that group. And so they invited award winners to come and talk about the project at the conference. Ben represented our work really well. And it's awesome to see him getting out there and representing the conferences. I did 2 guest lecture opportunities at the University of Montana last week, one for a water policy course, the other on ecological restoration, and found out now they have a really popular conflict resolution program and mediation, and they're actually using the Life in the Land series as part of the curriculum now. So, every student, I think there's 29 students in that program this semester, and all of them are, obligated to watch that series. And I also recommend the rest of the films in that series, if you get a chance to watch them. They're really inspiring and incredible. One is about the winged aces and the work that Bill Milton is doing in the Mussel Shell Watershed. It's just phenomenal. The Sealy Swan is focused on forestry, and one on the Blackfeet and the County Health Lodge Institute. They're just doing fantastic rangeland work on the Blackfeet Reservation. So a lot of good stuff there to peruse. On the proposal circuit, a lot of some big ones that we've been working on that Tana's really been working a lot on. So the first one is our water storage. We're back on really focusing on water storage. We met with the subcommittee, as I said last month. We decided to hone in on wisdom as the gauge and modeling out what storage, where and how to store water to get to our 20 CFS conservation target at wisdom. So what we're doing is writing a grant to the DNRC under their critical state need. There's a way you can propose a grant to their mine program, but call it a critical state need. And we've gotten the okay from DNRC basically saying this is critical state need type of stuff. And so the objective here is to hire an engineer. We've hooked up with WGM Group. They're out of Missoula. They're actually Missoula's like urban planners and also have a super heavy engineering shop. Bruce Anderson is sort of a legendary geomorphologist in Montana who's been active for 40 years in the business. He's on the team, so I'm really excited. He's on that with what their main hydro modeler, and they're going to be basically developing a very flexible model where we can input different storage alternatives, and they can tell us during different precip events what that means as far as in-stream flow at Wisdom. This is a model that will also be able to grow to other regions of the watershed. If we want to look at where storage could happen in other sub-watersheds, we can move that forward as funding comes around. So that's really exciting. And then the other one is continuing with our Elkhorn work, same grant program, and we're looking to get to a 30% design on the Elkhorn mine project. By December, we will have a conceptual design and good characterization of volumes of metals, locations, amount of dirt that needs to be moved by Pioneer Technical. And we'll also have results from the pilot mycelium study that's happening, and I'm forcing the engineers and the mycologists to talk to each other and co-design a remedy for Elkhorn. Super exciting stuff. I think Ben is going to jump into more of that, but basically just continuing on. This is a big project. It's going to be huge. We just got to kind of keep the momentum going. So this next bout of funding will get us to a 30% design. Ben and I continued measurement on the Wise River. We've just been trying to get a handle on where the water is, where it's leaving. Part of this Wise River equation, as you all remember, the Western Rivers Conservancy bought the Eagle Rock Ranch. Some people call it the Split Diamond. And we've been having some really interesting conversations. We've got a window of time when Western Rivers has this property. They're a nonprofit. They're going to convey it to the forest. At first, there was talk of taking the 9 CF, or I think they've got 7 CFS water right or 9 CFS water right. There was talk of TU converting that to an in-stream right. After some conversation with the Western Rivers folks and our experiences of knowing the value of soaking soils and flooding places out and growing good grass, we've got a lot of excitement and momentum now to change the equation. So now Jim McGee is, first he's got money to do some headgate improvements on that delivery system to that ranch. And he started scratching out some numbers on the productivity of that ground. It's really productive ground. And so the idea is if we can figure out a way to keep it in flood irrigation, and we might be able to, he pencil scratched it, but it was over $100,000 worth of hay that can be, and he figured out the AUMs. So now the question becomes, can we make some changes with where ranchers are putting livestock late in the season and put them up there and change some of their water takings down below. It's kind of complex. It's honestly like beyond my small brain's capacity to comprehend because I don't do ag, but Jim's on it, and there's willingness to kind of move forward with this idea. Instead of messing with the water, let's work with the value of the grass and see if that gets us any savings further downstream. Kind of ongoing negotiations. Part of the blue healer bite that I took was looking at some of the headgate infrastructure out there, you know, finding out about more details than I needed to know about longstanding issues of irrigators sharing water and fighting over it for generations. Also something we will slowly be working out as we develop a comprehensive improvement for the Wise River so we can keep it flowing as cold as possible. So that's still in the works. For a long time, we were working on stream gauge infrastructure. There's a working group that the state put together. That working group has now produced a report, and there's a bill being developed that unfortunately does not have a fiscal note attached, and it does not have money for sustained stream gauge funding yet, but there is continuity, I guess, of this infrastructure to report out on the state of stream gauges and to continue this sort of early warning system that the state has developed. When stream gauges are at risk of blipping out, we have developed an early warning system to let people know that the funding is going to drop out and at least give groups an opportunity to keep them funded and keep them going as far as critical state infrastructure. That's what I'm calling it. So, you know, not everything that we wanted. What we really want is a funding solution that just locks in funding for stream gauge infrastructure. It's kind of important. Okay, on a lighter note, our watershed map, we have some still here. We've been selling a bunch of them. I've been mailing these things out, and all the proceeds from the map sales are going into our conservation fund. The map is, besides being kind of something beautiful to look at on the wall, also has some statistics that highlights 25 years, what this group has done, what we've put on the ground in terms of investments into the resource. Along with that, let's see, totally different deal, but you'll know I've been harping on this Army Corps and permitting thing. There's actually language now in a document, specific language to change the nationwide permitting process for the Army Corps. And that language is escalating very quickly up to the higher levels of the BLM and to higher ups at the Army Corps. It basically says, in a nutshell, if another federal agency has cleared a project for restoration, there's no reason why the Army Corps needs to get involved. And they can just sort of allow that agreement to stand on its own so that we don't have to do two levels of federal permissions to do very simple projects like the type of work that you'll hear about later today. The BLM basically, in the process of trying to get permits to do the work that you'll hear about this evening, it was getting silly, and the Army Corps was just going to get ridiculous. So the BLM basically wrote us a letter saying, we think what you're doing is okay, and we'll hold the bag. If the Army Corps doesn't like it, like, we're saying this is okay. Go ahead and proceed. So that was the pretext to what you'll see later today. It was all done legally. We also have a kind of, in that same line of work on the Eastern Pioneers, we also have a BLM agreement now. Finally, it's in the works. We're in the federal system with the BLM, and it's a pot of money that we intend to have kind of consistently filled up year after year, so we can keep doing riparian and mesic restoration along the Eastern Pioneers as they do conifer encroachment work. And then the last thing is fishing regulation changes being proposed. And the comments are due, this is a little tricky for us, but comments are due tomorrow. And the proposals do some pretty substantial changes to closures, dates, and times. There's some proposed amendments. You know, Clayton's been doing a lot of work on this and has we've kind of gotten a good sense of where people are on this issue. But more specifically, I wanted to bring Eric into the fold here to represent the guide industry and maybe add some more language. So ideally, if we could, in this group, I'd like to get a sense of where we are as a committee. And if we want to put in a letter, I'm happy to do that tomorrow. Whether it's piggybacking on where Trout Unlimited is or adding new language to what we think should be implemented. And to do that, I'm going to kind of pass the mic to Eric to just kind of introduce the regulation.
So if you haven't heard about what regulation changes are, I'm just going to touch on really the closures of the river, not necessarily the catch and keep or the barbless or the treble bug or anything like that. The closure regulations right now, last year, we all came together and put together a plan for a spawning closure. And BHWC Commission approved it, working with landowners, business owners, outfitters, guides. And we decided to close BLM Maiden Rock to Browns Bridge starting on October 1st until April 1st. And the new proposed changes would close Dickey Bridge to the mouth starting on October 1st, all the way through April 1st, and continue that closure from Dickey Bridge to Browns Bridge until the third Saturday in May. So the floatable river, 40-some% would be closed for 8 months of the year. And the idea behind it is we've had a dramatic decrease in brown trout populations and trying to come up with a way and ideas so that we can protect brown trout and bring them back to above the 25th percentile, which they are currently below. And being able to do a stream closure in the spawn was something that we thought would help. FWP did not say that they had data that suggested that would help or hurt or make a difference whatsoever, but we all decided that that was a sacrifice that was worthy so that we could collect data and learn about what happened in that section. And the thing about Maiden Rock to Browns Bridge, it has a high concentration of reds, and it also has a high concentration of fishing accesses. So it's very easy to access and for weight anglers to trample on those reds. And so that was a closure that we all thought that would be good and that we would study and we would learn in that area where there is shocking data historically. They shock from Melrose to Browns every year, and we'll be able to learn. And what they've suggested now is to close from Dickey Bridge all the way to the mouth starting October 1st. And the people that I've talked to in the outfitting community, business owners, landowners that have the land for recreation so that they can fish, that essentially closes all of the river that's fishable during the winter time, all the way up until April 1st. So there would be, because as we know from Dickey Bridge up, it's more likely to be frozen in the winter. And so all winter fishing access would be closed. And the spring closure, which is, I think, the most detrimental part of it, is something that would close, like I said, over 40% of the river for 8 months of the year. And it would have an extremely detrimental effect on the economy of the Bickle Valley. Recreation would not be allowed on that river in that section. And it's concerning.
Use the April 1st with the stream closure.
So the entire river from Dickey Bridge to the mouth would be closed October 1st until April 1st. And then Dickey Bridge to Browns Bridge, that closure would continue until the third Saturday of May. And my thought on it is spring closure, because of the flow difference between October and April and May. The average flow of the big hole at the Melrose gauge, October 1st, I think is around 340 CFS. And the average flow for April and May is well above 1,000. So it's two totally different worlds. Wade anglers wouldn't be able to access the river in a way that they could damage reds detrimentally. They could float over them, but they're not standing on them, they're not walking on them in the spring. Whereas the fall closure, I think that the idea that we had put in place last year, where we could have a section where we have historical shocking data, and we can look and see if closing in October during the spawn actually makes a difference. If we close the entire thing, it does two things. A, we don't have a control for doing a study. Everything's closed, so we don't know if that was actually what's making the difference. And two, having an opportunity so that we can still have recreation on this river, we can still have tourism come in, we can still have some kind of commerce and not cut out an entire month of efficiency.
So it have to repeat or ones that suggested that?
Yes.
Does this go for a tradition?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, it's the October meeting. The comments are due tomorrow.
Yeah, the comments are due tomorrow. That's the big thing.
You basically support the lower part of the property. Is what you're.
No, what I'm saying is I support what the plan was put in place last year that closes the fall closure from May profit grounds, continuing that so that we can get data, so we can study it and learn and not do a complete closure of the entire river. And I know it's not the entire river, if you really look at it from Dickey Bridge to the mouth, that's the majority of the river.
Yeah, but I live above, I see 4 foot of ice on it. I've also seen it go out around the point of April. People start fishing. One guy went in there to go fishing or swimming or something. He ended up down at the It used to be fishing season open, like say, 3rd of May, and until the end of November, it was closed. All it was true. But again, that was common in Irish.
And then they changed the rules, and we had in place for a long time a winter closure from Melrose to Browns, and then there was slot limits on keep and all of that. But I mean, for the last long time, there's been a year-round opening on the hole. And so what this would do is just put in place a closure during the spawn to help protect the Browns, to bring that population back up to where we'd like to see it.
I've seen when they turn around, drop that river, that's fishing.
So these browns, when do they start spawning?
We usually start seeing reds develop first week of October, and the big push of the actual spawn, when you see them actively on the reds, is usually 2nd and 3rd week of October.
Okay, and how long?
About that 2 to 3 week period.
And then how long does it take, once they're spawned? Put the eggs in the ground, how long does it take?
I don't know the exact answer to that. Jim would be a much better answer, but I know that he has said that in the spring that they have hatched and are actively swimming the river.
March 15th, so they're laying there. November, December, January, February, March, they're laying there 4.5 months. In the rest. Now, when does the, so how just laying there, is there a lot of risk in losing?
If they're trapped.
Yeah. Because losing trapped once they finish spawn of those are not in there.
Yes.
So when did the rainbow?
In the spring.
Are they consumed?
That's the premise for the spring closure. And one of the arguments that FWC had was because the population numbers are below the 25th percentile, they wanted to do closure. But in the data, the brown trout and the rainbow trout were put together and combined rather than separated. If you separated them, the rainbow trout population would be above the 25th percentile. And so that would eliminate the justification for spring closure. On top of that, the flows are totally different in the spring, and during the rainbow spawn, it's not like the brown trout spawn. Well, I can tell you where every single red is from maiden rock to browns, and they are in the exact same spot every year. Rainbow reds, I have no idea where they are. There's enough water in the river, you can't see it, you can't walk into them, you can't stand on them, and work the red wood, and have anyone can sit there on top of a red or walk across it. It's a different ball.
So if they spawn in the cage there, and so you're not going to lose these flow. Really, the only way they'll get in trouble is to freeze it. I don't understand it.
And so, I think what I've seen or heard, thank you, I appreciate that. Sorry for the slight tweak on the agenda, I know this should be a continuing thing, but I wanted to, it was fresh and I wanted to get it out here. What folks think about it. I was gonna say that TU is gonna propose an amendment, and you want to just kind of.
Yeah, I'm happy to, I won't dig too deep into it. One issue working with the Fishing Outfitters Association of Montana and FWP, the proposal is written, certainly we don't see having those in the commission and wanted to find something that would preserve the integrity of Jim Olson's study design here. Because I think it's important to flag that these are not permanent regulations, that in the fish plan, Eric mentioned the 25% threshold, and that as we see a recovery, you would see the lifting of those restrictions in future. But the compromise that I think we have brokered with FOAM, Fishing Outfitters Association, is to remove that spring closure on that middle section. When I say the middle section, the Dickey to Browns Bridge section. So it would have one consistent spring opening day from Dickey all the way to the mouth of April 1st. I agree with Eric, and one of the issues when you ask Jim Wilson is where are those rainbow trout spawning, and Jim can't answer that question. Yes. If he could answer that question, I might have a different opinion, but without that knowledge, I tend to agree with Eric, but I think most of the fish are spawning in pretty deep water. I think it's also pretty hard to have the tributaries wide open when you close the main stem in the spring. It's really spawning fish that you're concerned about. So, and I don't presume that is going to resolve all of the sort of angst around the proposal, but I think it is one piece that Jim was willing to give up on, just not having that third Saturday in May in the middle section. And it felt like something that would hopefully get enough votes to the commission to move forward. I mean, I think one of the hard things is we haven't had a false spawning closure yet, because technically the one we did last year was November 1st, not October 1st, and then we had to fix it this spring. That is, if we can avoid anything, it is the August commission from last year when we were rewriting this on the podium. So I think there's a lot of runway left before the commission meeting, and I think room for constructive conversation about where this goes. The comment deadline is tomorrow, but I mean, I know the commissioners would be happy to hear folks up until the October 20th commission meeting. But that's sort of the compromise that we got together with FOAM and are going to propose to the commission is to keep the fall closure intact, as well as and we're not touching on this. You know, I mean, some of my membership is having to swallow a tough pill on the harvest piece and on the year restriction piece, which is something we don't need to get into necessarily tonight. In the time to better understand what impact those two pieces would have, particularly the year restrictions, the two different sections. It being artificial lures only in the middle section and really anything goes on the lower section. So anyways, I don't know if everybody's going to be happy at the end of this. The commitment that we've gotten from FWP, the hard part here is that when Matt was here and Jim was here, yeah, I don't remember what month that was. May. I was going to say it was cold. I remember, so it had to have been a while ago. The whole plan from FWP was to write the fish plan before we did the fish regulations. And once again, just like with the food owl changes, we were like doing this chicken or egg thing of we're writing fish regulations that are predicated on a plan that has yet to come. And that plan is really what's going to outline this when we're below 25%. These are sort of the most restrictive regulations that you're seeing right now. As you move up into higher fish counts, those restrictions are going to loosen, but in terms of removing those closures, increasing the harvest limits, things like that. So I do have one other thing to share, and hopefully good news on the stream gauging.
Yes.
You want me to do that now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just real quick, and I was at the Water Policy Interim Committee today, and I've been working with Pedro heavily on the stream gauge working group, and then on the report and the associated bill that is coming out with it. That bill, I think, is a good step forward to continue the early notification plan to keep, because the work group is going to sunset in 2023. And I think that would have been a disaster to lose all of this early notification of loss of gauges. So this will continue that early notification. Also on the funding, because I share Pedro's sort of persistence in terms of the only thing that fixes this problem is money. The DNRC in the executive budget, so the governor's budget will be released in November 15th. That will have a request of a little over $1 million and 4.5 FTEs for stream gauges. So there will be money and FTEs increased in the governor's budget, is what I'm promised from the DNRC leadership. Obviously that can go south in the governor's office, but I've been, promised and seen the proposal that will go forward. So that additional $1 million would help maintain the state side funding and increase the number of DNRC gauges in the DNRC network. Obviously, without the Congress changing their problem in terms of addressing the short gap of federal funding, is going to be challenging, but $1 million more would help a lot to resolve some of this problem.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Okay.
As always, just a mouthpiece. You guys are the smart people. You know way more about this stuff. So I appreciate both of you. Let me just, if y'all don't mind, unless anyone has an issue, I want to kind of continue with the agenda. I think we've sort of aired what these issues are. When we're done with Ben's restoration update, I think if there's, maybe I'll just kind of bring it, if there's something specific, like, I've got like tomorrow, if there's specific language we want to put in for tomorrow, I'm happy to do so. If my default option was just to kind of piggyback on the proposed amendment and the letter that Clayton's already written with Montana TU. He's done a lot of groundwork on this, and it seems like a path forward. But if we want to push for something different, we can either do it in public comment by tomorrow, or we can put out or we can engage the commissioners directly, either myself or Eric or one of us. But I think it's going to take a little noodling from this group a little bit just to make sure and see what, Eric, where you're comfortable and where the kind of conservation contingent of our group is comfortable. Does that sound okay?
Because I would say that the formal public comment deadline is tomorrow to be included in the stapled packet of things commissioners get, but you can send a letter to all 7 commissioners
Yes.
at any point and they will read it. So.
Yeah, Yeah, so we'll know they'll get the message. Do we need to have that message sort of in the public record or not is kind of the question. So let you guys just kind of sit and stew on that while we hear about the rest of our updates. I'm happy to talk more about it. But I wanted to, it was urgent, and I apologize for, I've just been on kind of scramble mode for a while due to vacations and haven't really been following this as closely as I normally would. Okay. Up next, what do we got? Steering committee update. And any updates? Steering committee? Nope. Yeah, we haven't met. We're due for a meeting here. So no updates from steering committee. Then we'll go to Tana. Ready?
All right, I'll be pretty quick today. Go back to Zoom. I'll just do a quick wildlife update. Slides up here.
It's up on my computer. I'm viewing the Watershed screen. Oh, I'm looking at your screen. Why is that not up? Oh, God. No, boy. Yeah, please do, Tana. Sorry.
So our ranger program, we have a ranger named Chet Robertson who monitors 6 U.S. Forest Service grazing allotments in the Upper Big Hole for 7 livestock producers. He does this each year from July 1st through September 30th, and this is something like his 11th or 12th year doing that. And he looks for predator activity, livestock condition, and injured and dead livestock with the goal of helping producers find carcasses quickly and getting them confirmed by wildlife services for reimbursement. So this year, it's been a pretty busy year. There are wolves, black bears, mountain lions, and even some grizzly bears up there. Chet has found multiple carcasses already, but so far none of them have been confirmed by wildlife services, mostly because bears have been getting to them and just destroying them before they can be investigated. But there was one confirmed loss to a grizzly loss, cattle loss to grizzly in the Pioneer Mountains east of Jackson. And that wasn't one that Chet found, but it is kind of something to know that there was a confirmed grizzly depredation in the Big Hole. Where Chet has photographed at least 2 separate grizzly bears with game camera in Minor Creek and Little Lake Creek, and he's seen a lot of tracks this year too from grizzly bears. So this is kind of a big deal for us for this program. We've been seeing more and more grizzlies each year, but it seems like they're just all over the place this year. Chet has been warning campers and hunters about the grizzly bears and letting people know that they're around, put their food away and carry bear spray. And new this year, just in the last couple of weeks, he's also been spending a little bit of time checking wolf traps for wildlife services just to help them out a little bit. So yeah, it's been a busy summer.
There's one update where we thought there's 2 grizzly bears.
They look like every minute of each other.
Yeah.
They were, because one was in the middle of the road and one was on the other side of the road.
Yeah. Yeah, so be aware when you're out and about working and recreating, they're seeing more and more grizzlies. And that's pretty much it for wildlife right now. Unless there are any questions, I'll pass it over to Ben for restoration.
All right, I'll get going. Just like last month, this month has been really productive and really busy for me. And so our restoration programs here at the Big Hole Watershed Committee are really cranking on all cylinders. We have a lot going on. And so I'll start with our Upper Oregon Creek project. I just had a Montana Conservation Corps crew come in and they did what I'm calling a revegetation hitch, essentially digging trenches along upwards in Upper Oregon Creek that are denuded by the Anaconda smelter, digging trenches, throwing fertilizer in those trenches, then throwing seed and covering all that our trenches with this coir fabric that you can see here in this upper portion of the screen. Really does a good job of protecting our seed from blowing away or getting eaten by mice, and that coir fabric does a really good job of helping with germination too. So on that far right photo, you can see they did about, I think, 60 Band-Aids in like 7 days. I worked with them for a couple of days, and they were just covering the landscape with them. If you're driving up the Mill Creek Highway, George Sugarloaf, just view to the left, and you can see all those Band-Aids. So I had a great hitch with the MCC. This month, I also had the helicopter out from Deer Lodge Heliworks. They did 25 acres of fertilization up there. So I took this photo just to show you guys that they're doing a really good job getting the fertilizer spread across the landscape. That's 1,600 pounds per acre. So that was awesome to see them running and gunning for a couple of days. My stage 0 project is complete. I'll touch on that here in the next slide. But essentially, I got an operator, an excavator, gave me a call and said, hey, I can be up there in the next few days. And so I was like, let's go, let's crank on Upper Oregon Creek. And with the stage 0 complete, we also pulled the perch culvert at the very end of the project site that was impeding fish passage to about half a mile of stream, obliterated about 300 feet of road. And I was also just taking advantage of the operator doing some machine-assisted enhancements to Upper Oregon Creek and some of this smelter impacted land. So I was trying to take advantage of him. We got a lot of good work done. Up next, we're going to seed. We're going to do the seeding portion of the helicopter applications up there. We're just going to hopefully wait for the first blanketing of snow. So we're going to lay that seed down. Hopefully we can do that here in October. And then a really cool thing that came out of this month regarding Upper Oregon Creek is that we finally are getting our aspen enhancement project sort of pushing through. That is a component of my Upper Oregon Creek project. Originally, it was going to be about 253 acres of aspen enhancement. Long story short, we had to scale that down to about 70 acres. But we put that out today with FWP. Got one bid on it, and so that's positive. About 70 acres of aspen enhancement is going to be done up there. The really cool thing about that is we're going to use all of that forestry product, all the slash that we're going to use to cut off all the conifers in those aspen stands and plug all the gullies in Upper Oregon Creek. So that work will be next month, and then hopefully I'll have some cool photos and an update to share with you guys on that one. Yeah. So enhancement. Sorry, broad term there, but essentially what we're going to do is just going to go cut out all the conifers on 100 feet of the whole clone. It would be ideal, but for this application, we're going to do 100 feet on either side of these gullies. So we're just going to focus on the aspen clones around these gullies. So it's totally a multi-natural resources benefit kind of component of this work. Yes. Yeah, exactly. It's just up the road. Yeah. Yep. Kind of the headwaters of Oregon Creek. So this is the stage 0 project. I've been talking about it a lot. Stage 0 is like a hot restoration term in stream restoration right now, but I wanted to give you guys a representation of like what actually we're doing. This is the Mill Creek Highway right here. Sugarloaf is like right over here. And so somehow this creek got straightened and deeply incised. I hypothesized perhaps maybe they ditched it back in the day, or the stream captured maybe a 2-track. But it was completely incised here. And so all we were going to do, and all we did do, is push material into the straightened stream and pushed it back into this historical alignment. And when you're on the landscape here, this photos are really terrible. We don't have to adjust this, but you can see old meanders of where the stream used to go. And so we're just plugging out that ditch and then letting the stream get back to its natural alignment. So really cool to see that done. I seeded it and take a look at it next time you're down the highway. Keep your eye on it for me. Next slide, please. Cool. I wanted to just briefly touch on the NRD work that we're doing in the Anaconda uplands. Last time we met, I had one more hitch of this hand crew that we did about a week's worth of work in the end of August. Wanted to show you how impressive these goalie check dam structures are that my crew was building. Massive. They built 16 of these structures in the California Creek drainage. And Pedro and I actually went up there after a monsoon event this year and saw all the sediment transport and activation. And hey man, we got to get back up there ASAP and get this thing plugged up again because all of our structures that were previously built were overtopped. So good to see that done. And then we finally got our final compliance report into the NRD and got that signed off on. I've been talking about this for a couple of meetings, but NRD finally said, hey, we're done, and they sent it to EPA. And so in October, EPA is going to do their verification visit to go and make sure that everything that we wrote in that document is up to par. And so that's really good news with that. If everything checks off, all the work that we've done over the last decade plus, we'll get the final EPA sign off. So big deal. We'll be celebrating that if that day comes, hopefully soon. Okay, for Upper French Gulch, this one's been a fun one over this last month. Since the last we met, I think we built 3 pools. Okay, and so in the 2 weeks since we met, they built about 10 to 15, and then on August 30th, ran into some really hard rock. We hit a rock vein that essentially the excavators couldn't get through. I'll save you all the drama and sort of stress that I've encountered over the last couple of weeks, but it shifted our plan and it shifted our budget. We've been working through it, and Pedro's been helping me out, working with the contractors and whatnot, but we ended up bringing a hydraulic jackhammer, and the excavator was using that to bust up this vein. We got through it actually, I was on site today, and they're on pool 20, so they have about 10 more pools to go, really gaining a ton of elevation over a long span to get fish up this French Gulch into it's about 2.5 miles of cold refuge and habitat. So here's just some cool photos that I took over the last month. Go to the next one down. I think I took a really sweet before and after photo here.
On that last one, sorry, what's the height of your
So Nolan, the cascade was 30 feet. So we're gaining 30 feet over
Then there was a
probably 400.
And then there was a culvert after that.
And then we pulled a perch culvert, another giant perch culvert too. So they're basically gaining 30 feet, 1.5 feet increments, stepping it up. But this is an unforeseen kind of obstacle that we had to get through here. I'll be posting these on social media with Tana's help, but I got some really cool before and afters. This is the cascade here, and you can see our new stream alignments going all the way up here. And I have a cool time lapse that I'm going to share too when it's all said and done. So things are moving along. Hopefully we can wrap this thing up soon because we've been going at it for a while. A lot of earth's been getting moved. Cool. I wanted to touch on this, and this is really highlighted my last month. Was kicking off our Eastern Pioneers work in these 2 tributaries reaching Trapper and Browns Gulch. I had Nolan's crew out with the youth employment program. And it kicked some serious butt. I went out with them for a couple of days and had a blast building these low-tech process-based restoration structures. We're talking about it. We talk about it all the time, but essentially just BDAs, low-tech enhancement work. So we built about 30 to 35 structures in both reaches, and we got the University of Montana Western students out for a volunteer day, and that was cool. I had some freshmen getting out there and getting muddy and filling their faces with mud and just having a blast. So that was a really big highlight. We got those 2 done over the last month, and then we're going to do 2 more reaches, some main stem reaches next year too. So that's been a positive. Pedro touched on this Army Corps of Engineers permitting, and I'll make it short, but essentially what Pedro and I are doing is we're going to get trained on wetlands delineations. And it's a component of our work that we need to get through on the permitting side of things to get these low-tech projects done. Sometimes the wetlands delineation costs more than the actual project itself. So Pedro and I thought, hey, why don't we try to get trained on this thing so we can do it in-house? And so Pedro and I did the first day of training with GM Consulting this month, and then here actually next week we're going to do the day 2 of it. So hopefully the fruits of our labor there pay off in the future.
$10,000 a mile.
Yeah. Yeah.
Think about all the work that needs to be done. $10,000 a mile.
Just so you know, you can blame it for it. I got some 15-year-olds who are really motivated.
18-year-old can do it. Boy, I hope I. All right, next hand. And I got so many sweet photos of the work that we did, and people were just fired up. But this was a cool before and after photo I did just to give you a flavor of the work. Super dry and completely disconnected floodplain here, and we're doing a bank attached post-assisted log structure. So when water hits it, we're flowing, this is downstream, it's going to hit it and push water out onto this dry floodplain, and hopefully this is going to be drained and soaking the soils there. And Nolan's just stoked and having a great time. It's been good. So I'm happy to be working with the Youth Employment Program, and Nolan will talk to us a lot more about that here in a couple minutes. Okay, other happenings. Pedro talked on the Wise River monitoring. We have one more monitoring event that's going to happen on Wise River, and then we can close that data collection effort up for the season. Hopefully we can do it before the snow flies and it turns into winter. The Montana agriculture.
Montana bioagriculture.
Bioagriculture, gotcha. Anyway, Egan and Cliff, they were here last meeting, gave us all their updates on Elkhorn biofiltration. They went up and they were able to implement and install their larger scale pilot project on the 1,000-foot level attic. And Pedro was up there helping them out. And here's what that sort of looks like, guys. These 6-foot columns. I think what they did is, and Pedro, correct me if I'm wrong, but they pumped about 3 gallons per minute of this acidine drainage through these 6-foot long columns full of mycelium mass. And I think it did take about 300 gallons of water before they hit breakthrough.
Yeah, something like that. It's like within an hour and a half, all the binding sites,
Yeah, about what they found is within an hour and a half, all the binding sites were taken up. So that means what happened really is the calcium, there's so much calcium in this water, and the calcium was the first thing to bind to the substrate, and then the zinc, and then the other metals. They were taking samples in between the filters and also at time intervals. So they're going to have a really good sense of the filtration capacity of this thing. It's pretty cool. It turns out that, and this is all will be reported out, and then they're going to take that data together with Pioneer's soil chemistry analysis. The 2 of them are going to get together, and we'll just give them plenty of days to just knock their heads together and come up with a remedy that works. It seems what we're learning, I think, is that this system works really well for less water, higher concentration of metals. It doesn't work so well with persistent flow, larger volumes of water and fewer metals. So we'll be adapting where this filtration system goes in the remedy, but you can think of it almost as a stormwater best management practice for the highest contaminated areas in groundwater seeps and stuff like that. But anyways, it's happening, and I would challenge anyone to find an on-the-ground example of a filter like this anywhere. It might be the first one, and that just makes me very happy.
Yeah, we have a couple more, I think, field days that Egan and Cliff want to do to come on and do more of this work.
That's right. They want to make it, they want to do it public. They want to do this again and invite folks out to see it.
really trying to get the Forest Service bought into this because we're bought in. Pedro mentioned I went to Spokane and spoke at a conference. That was awesome. Had a lot of great feedback for the work that we're doing in the watershed. So kudos to everyone. I'll save my Smith Sage Springs restoration update. We've been doing a lot of planning on that end. That's taken up a lot of my time. And then lastly, I forgot to mention this in our last meeting, but it's certainly worth mentioning is we had a beaver take over our beaver dam analog on one of our projects. So that was a big major win, right? Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the goal, right? And that's what we want to see. So that was a major accomplishment for me, and I know Pedro was stoked on it too. Here it is.
You better be careful, they're pretty sharp, don't you? Do all the work.
Hey, I do it better than we do too, right?
Yeah, they will collaborate all day.
Yeah. So I put up a game cam to see if I can find them building on it. And they're so stinky that they didn't come. So yeah, that's it, guys. Busy on our restoration front. Do you have any questions?
Can I ask one, living in Oregon, there's planting aspen.
Yeah.
Is that beneficial, the reason you're doing it for fuel production, or why are we doing aspen?
It was kind of just the aspen stand is right in the middle of our project area. And it's a young, the lodge pole are pretty young coming into it, but lodge pole stand is coming in.
So the lodge poles will take over.
That's the idea.
That's the idea.
Yeah, but they already are taking over.
Anything to do with fuel production?
It will be a small little fuels reduction, but it's only 70 acres, so it's kind of just right in the footprint of our project area. And it's big on habitat. Yeah. We all know that critters like the aspen stands, so try to make sure that we can keep those things on the landscape.
There's conference suck a lot of water.
Yep. How many gallons per day?
300.
That's right.
Is that right? Actually, 300.
Upper Oregon Creek's gotten a lot of our attention from 2019, or yeah, Oregon Creek from 2019 to now. So
Yeah.
I think we can walk away from Oregon Creek here after this. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Great work, man. It's just really inspiring and exciting to see. And this Upper Oregon Creek thing happened, just FYI, for those of you that know the Big Hole, have land in the Big Hole, see problems in the Big Hole. Literally, we were sitting in a meeting with the steering committee, and I think it was Steve was like, "Oh, have you been to Upper Oregon Creek? Oh, it's just hammered. So, it's just the stumps and the white stuff." I was like, "Thank you very much. I will go take a look." And here we are, 2 years later, a bunch of money into it, and we're done. So when you see problems in this watershed, let us know. We will fix them within reason. Okay, that's it for the report. We're really cranking here, but I do want to give a little bit more space. First, Ron, do you want to, for additional items?
I was curious.
So I'm Rob Remmer. I'm a hydrogeologist with the Montana Bureau of Mines and Geology. Our groundwater investigation program is starting a new project down in Melrose, where we'll be looking at groundwater, surface water interactions, largely looking at irrigation practice effects on groundwater recharge and then subsequent flow of the river. So we'll be doing some groundwater modeling, lots of monitoring. My two colleagues here, Ann Hansen, she's gonna do some pretty cool temperature imaging on the river. So we're gonna actually go down the river with a thermal camera and check the banks out and look for groundwater coming in. And then Jenna Billman's gonna be our primary field hand on this, while I sit in the office and pound around keyboards. So, and then I'll do the primary groundwater modeling for the project. So currently the project area, I have some fact sheets over here and then a description of what our program is at the Bureau. But just kind of a rough description of the project area is sort of where the river comes out of the canyon after Main Rock, so not as far up as Main Rock, but at the end of the canyon there. And then south to basically Browns Bridge is kind of the project area. And so we'll be in and around the area for the next year or two, collecting data. And then we'll be working that data up and publishing a report after that. So the main thing we need in terms of support is access for monitoring. So groundwater monitoring, so anybody that has wells in the area. And then the biggest challenge is irrigation infrastructure, ditches, canals, anything we can get in and get water levels, flow measurements, anything like that that we can get a hold of is pretty critical to our work. So right now we're working through access issues, trying to get as many contacts as we can. Any suggestions are totally welcome. Please come talk to me after the meeting. I have some business cards I can hand you if you have any suggestions, anything like that. Our program is explained a little bit in the paperwork we brought. So, but just an overview, the groundwater investigation program is funded through an appropriation in the legislature. So we're totally independent research group that basically comes out and does these focused watershed scale studies to collect data and address a specific hydrogeologic question. In the case of the Melrose project, the specific question is how are irrigation changes over the years affecting return flows to the river and subsequently temperature effects associated with some of those changes. So we're a non-regulatory agency at the Bureau. We just collect data, produce the reports, make our interpretations, and then that's where our projects kind of end. So, I'll keep it that short. Like I said, any questions? We have our project fact sheets over here, and then some background on what our investigation program is and where we've been around the state. The program is about 13 years old now, I think. Yeah, because it's turned 10 the first year I started, so we're about 13 years in now. So
You guys will be here in November. So.
yes, I'll be actually getting a full talk in November on our project to get some more detail on it. So we are in a little more informal capacity. But any suggestions or insights are greatly appreciated. Anecdotal stories on the river and the watershed are always helpful. It kind of gives us places to look into. You guys have been here longer than we have, so.
So, yeah. I think perhaps we're getting into, one of these sensitive issues, right, of irrigators and water and private property and someone going in and measuring. We recognize it's sensitive. We don't want to spook anybody. But if anyone has ideas, especially among irrigators, like how do we increase the comfort level with this project? Because it's going to help us understand where we can bring resources to improve projects and where, an irrigator might have an infrastructure situation that we could help them improve that would lead to better conditions in the river. So, I don't know what the best way is. I know not showing up and just measuring someone's water without them knowing is not the answer, but let's find the better answer. Right. No one wants to do that, right? But maybe if it's the committee approaching the landowners and the irrigators first, or someone or a board member that knows folks doing a little side conversation, that would be really helpful. So anyway, keep that in mind, please. If you don't know, the main irrigators in Melrose, and you happen to see them, talk to them, encourage them to be open about what's going on. This is not like the water police are not coming out to get anybody. Really, this is data collection, fact finding, and y'all did the studies in the Upper Big Hole, for us years ago that proved to be really, really, really beneficial for our understanding of this resource. Right? Okay. Fishing regs. Any thoughts? Anything for the good of the order that we should consider at this moment? What should I be doing tomorrow morning as far as letters? In between taking my kids to camp and skiing.
Big variation, but I think in talking to a lot of business owners in Melrose is, I don't know what Watershed would be on this, but I want to protect the fish. But I also want to protect the economy of Melrose and Whitewood and Divide and Glen. And having a full closure in October takes 1/7 of the season away. And I know it's not the busiest month of the season, but having the closure that we've put in place for the spawn is important. And it's important to look at the data and decide how beneficial that closure is and looking at it going forward. But doing the entire closure of Biggie Bridge to the mouth in October is going to have a detrimental effect on the economy. And that's a tough pill to swallow for every business owner. And it's also going to be difficult for every landowner in the pot. It's going to be, you'll have zero river to fish in the winter time if they want.
There's no science behind it.
And that's the whole point of the closure that was put in place last year, was so we would have a section so we could study to see what effects closing it during this spawn had.
Is there a suggestion?
I mean, my suggestion is I would love to see it stay where, with the plan that was put in place that was approved by FWP Commission last year with a October 1st to April 1st closure of Maiden Rock to Browns instead of Dickey Bridge to the mouth.
To me, it makes sense for now, but we really don't. This is great.
It's a great way to collect data. And the data is going to be different if we close the entire thing. We're not going to know what's been open, what's been closed, what's been fished, what hasn't been fished.
We process. Do we?
As we have questions, anyone opposed?
Yeah. Does anyone? So it sounds like there's a proposal really to revert first to ride on the TU spring amendment that's going to push the season, back to that April 1st. And then now we have an additional proposal on the table to suggest in writing to FWP Commission to go back to the closure, same closure dates, but a smaller section of the river, the one that's currently in place.
From October 1st to April 1st, from Maiden Rock to Browns.
Maiden Rock to Browns.
And so we can collect data.
Yeah.
In a section that's not allowed to be fished during the spawn.
Yeah.
And see if there's any difference, like between the Hogback section and the Melrose section, when they shot this, we'll see if there's any difference in actual collect data.
Yeah. Okay. In the interest of. Yeah. So those are the annual sampling sections. And so it seems like if they do the closure all the way down, they don't have a control anymore to compare to. Any direction.
We're gonna really get into a place where we want to make decisions based on science.
Yeah.
That's the best way to collect data.
From the science standpoint, what's that?
I mean, Jim also would disagree. But I'm not here to.
100%. I think that having a section studied that had fishing and a section that was studied with closure, I think
Maybe not the science on the record. Yeah, it's not. I'm not here to push, it's your anticipating, I mean,
please.
but I would just, to Jim's point, Hagenberg's point, I mean, Jim Wilson would strongly object to losing that spine closure from Dickey to the mouth. And it's just,
And every business owner in the valley would strongly object to having zero access to the river during October.
you would have access, but no fishing.
You can go to the river, you cannot go to your line.
But Eric, you would agree on the change, at least you would, the change on the spring, that Saturday, the April 1st.
April, I want, yeah, I was 100%.
You don't want to lose that. I just want to be clear.
100% on board with that.
Great.
Yeah, it's just, I would like to see some access to the river during October.
Fishing, not for tea.
And
No bikini.
just having the opportunity for some commerce to still exist
Yeah,
during that month.
yeah. So is there any objection among voting board members to sort of add that suggestion to the comment? And throwing that comment in tomorrow.
Makes sense to me. I mean, why take the fishing community, make it hard on them to go out and say?
Anyone on Zoom? Is anyone feedback on Zoom? Yeah, because on Zoom, any thoughts here, opinions? I haven't read the chat. I don't know if that's any of those are relevant. Okay.
Hey, Pedro.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Hi, Paul Sidaway. How are you?
Great. Oh, maybe it's you.
Good. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just missed that last part about the potential recommendation to go under comments.
Yeah, so what Eric is proposing here is to go back for the fall closure, to go back to the current closure section and make it the shorter closure section from Maiden Rock to Browns, so that they can keep comparing that section to the other parts of the river, as opposed to closing, doing that fall closure for the larger stretch of the river, which is what's being proposed now.
Right.
And the back and forth, if you didn't hear it, was, Jim Olson would likely not agree with that. He wants it as it is. And the commercial community, the businesses in town are struggling with that reality and proposing to keep it shorter so that they have some access to fishing in the fall.
Sure. Yeah, so, a couple of things. It was an incredibly well thought out regulation plan by the biologist, and the plan is based on biology and abundance of trout. And the decisions were made with the idea that if the abundance increased, then there would be a drop in the restrictions and more time for the river to be open. And it makes perfect sense to it, at the very minimum, have an October 1st to April 1st closure on big sections of the river. And those are the times where really there's really little pressure, and it won't have much impact on anything, except it might protect the fishery more. And so I think anything short of that is really a statement against protecting the resource. And that's what this is about, really protecting the resource. And the biologists went through, it's an incredible plan that they came up with. And when the numbers increase, then restrictions can back off. And you can also use the two sections, Dickey to Browns, as it was originally opposed October 1st to May, third Saturday in May. Make that October 1st to April 1st. And then use your test section, Browns to the mouth, as October 1st to third Saturday in May. And then you have a section you compare to see if it really makes a difference to have that prolonged closure. The idea is that both brown trout and rainbows numbers are down. So let's make every effort we can. And as Matt showed with his formula, if you can improve the spawning numbers, the populations are going to increase, and then you can back off. So I think the plan as it sits is great. And, a little tweaking of those dates really allows you to fish from April all the way through September. And if we're going to have this fishery in the future or any hope to keep it as it is, then, you know, I think it's the least that we can do.
Thanks, Paul, for that.
Mhm.
Well, you know, I still didn't hear anything against from our committee though, against what Eric's proposing.
I don't really want to have to help the situation.
Yeah.
Taking a deep dive into the situation. But now I'm
Yeah, so we don't have a voting forum. Let me just suggest, because I really want to hear from Nolan and I really want to take a break. Suggestion to let the comment period go and let's come together as a board and committee more earnestly and hash this out between emails. And if we have to come together and have a separate meeting to duke this out and get some language that we're all happy with, and maybe get more of the rationale and the science so that we all feel better informed about what's going on. I mean, I think that the trade-off sounds clear to me about the implications of this proposed amendment, right? It's the businesses, they're fearful of the hurt that it's going to be to do this closure and what it's going to do to their businesses versus a protective stance, right, on the fish. And the lack of data that's informing all of this, right?
I think if that meeting, we should get here.
Yeah, and having our biologist here to really hash this out. I think that's kind of a missing element of this conversation right now, is really being able to hear from him, the rationale behind it.
when you post some of that on our website, give them a little reading, so please be informed or do we have to just.
Oh, no, yeah,
Send it out via email too.
yeah, we'll send it out, you know. Eric, how's that said with you? Yeah, and obviously you all are more than welcome as individuals to say whatever you want to the commission by tomorrow. Is that fair? Okay, we're all happy. Let's get some coffee, cookies, take a very short break because I really want to hear about Nolan's program. Okay.
I understand. But that's also.
Yeah.
University, and I was approached by Sean Clappy, who is the Nature Conservancy program manager down there in Dillon, and he asked me about this position, and I said, no, I'm very satisfied doing what I'm doing. And he talked to me a little more about the conversation, and I got pissed at him. He said, damn it, okay. And so that's what I've been doing the last 2 years. And I'll just keep blabbering on before I get into this, because.
Here you go.
Oh, hey, I get to talk about images. Okay, so the first year we started, we had one main crew, and we worked through the summer. This is from this year. This year we had 3 crews. We're growing really fast. With those 3 crews, 18 individuals. For my crews last year, I had 4 people ended up going to the BLM. My goal is to mentor all these employees, to teach them how to work, to teach them conservation ethics, to teach them just how to be professional and wonderful people. And I do it by being a real jerk to them. And it works out. They're like, I don't want to be like this guy. And they're wonderful. That's great. All right, next slide.
Okay, I got you.
All right. Thank you, Pedro.
Yep.
Okay, skip that. Nobody likes mission statements, they're boring. Okay, and that's Steve Adams on the left. He's guy started youth employment program from Salmon, Idaho. He's my mentor, and he's wonderful. He's really supportive. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. This is the first project we did this year. We do about between a third and a half of what we do in recreation projects. We put in 3.5 miles this season of Continental Divide Trail. It was really tricky stretch. We did 6.5 last year, I think, and put in a spring box up there. We're continuing on with that. We did a lot of campground, putting in fire rings and doing tables. This is in Idaho in the North Fork Corn Creek Campground. Okay, and that was wonderful in the springtime. That was, yeah, May. It was, yeah, awesome. In fact, there was an elk that came down while they were putting in the campfire ring. And 100 yards away, bird the calf right in front of them. It was just so cool. Yeah. So it's a good place to work, especially in the spring when it's warm. All right, so next slide. I'm going to kind of bounce through these really kind of quick, just so I want to get it out of here. So job fairs and talking to landowners. You were just talking about conflict resolution, and it's really good to be out there. Half of my, well, a little less than half of my employees are college-aged conservation biologists. 3 of them had already graduated and had degrees, and the other half, or just under half, were your high school students. And so we even had a 14-year-old this year. 14 is a little young, usually 15's. You know, the 14-year-olds just pop in for local projects. We also build a resume, do Sawyer training, and do first aid. Go ahead and go to the next slide. We really try and have fun. And here's all our partners. With all the partners here, Forest Service, Jim McGee's great mentor. We work with him on projects. National Wildlife Federation's not on here, but we work with them as well. TU, in fact, we had a flow measurement. One of our employees did that for 2 days every week, I think, yeah, for most of the season. That was really cool. And I love that kind of, in fact, she had the class out. So the way our employees, if we can integrate with the agencies, the specialists, and then they're tied to the university, her class comes out, she was getting hydro credits, their class comes out and studies her project. Isn't that sweet? Ain't that sweet? She's getting paid. And she's learning, and she's seeing her career path move forward right in front of her. Let's build that. Yeah. Next slide. Oh, this is first aid. You guys know what that is, but let's go to the next one. Fire rings. So a lot of what we do is manual. I mean, it's hard work. Digging up fire rings, replacing them. conifer reduction, that's very manual. PDAs, pound post all day. It's wonderful, it informs us how to work our bodies, and that's a big thing with conservation. How do you conserve your energy and your mental state to work, to care, to love? All right, next one. Oh, I mean, look at, there's never ending fire ratings, you know, I think we installed 18 in Idaho and another 13 over here. Yeah, next one. This is, we're doing Sawyer training, Forest Service, gave us training on that, which was just great. And there were seven of us got trained up, some kind of fire part. Okay, and there's us doing maintenance on the saws. Yeah, next one. Oh, this is where it gets more fun. So this is, I think this, the big hole. Yeah, I was gonna say French Creek, but that was earlier. Sorry, this is the big hole. This section's just outside of Jackson, just downstream. And this is, we get with Jarrett Payne with Fish and Wildlife. Quarter mile of this stream, we lopped that, I don't know, what that, 400 willow branches, which doesn't sound like a lot. So you get in there and start cutting them and dragging them to the water, floated, and then we stuck them in the water for a few weeks and cut them into steaks and pounded them in. So I know. Yeah, it's good to know. Okay, next slide. With a lot of these projects, like how much do you share?
Yeah.
Yep. And animal-friendly fencing. We do this with Jimmy Gee. We do it with Simon Bizard. And this is a project we did in Horsebury. And we were removing a bunch of the fence. And a professional fencer came in behind us to install new fence. Okay, next slide. Migratory routes for the, you guys I'm sure know about migratory routes in Pronghorn. What we're doing is animal-friendly fencing, just smooth wire on the bottom and getting the heights right of the 4 strands to 5. All right. And then I think this is the funniest photo of one single cheatgrass. Do you ever see cheatgrass grow up? That is one I've noticed. So that's another thing. This is a project that we did with the Nature Conservancy, and we'd have two crew members take a truck out, and they would just go map cheatgrass throughout Beaverhead. I think it was mostly Beaverhead County, but Southwest Montana. So we're trying to get a baseline. The Nature Conservancy with Sean Claffey is trying to get a baseline, and we're working with Safe Grouse, Southwest Montana Safe Grouse partnership on this to get this data, so we can start, before we start to attack the problem, we're trying to understand the problem. And to have us as on the ground collecting the data is really important for all these people who are building new careers. And learned a lot about GPS mapping, which is cool. Okay, good. That's nothing. Lopping, conifer lopping. Oh, okay, so, this is a tough one, because if you take a pair of loppers and you go out in landscape and you're looking at, hundreds and thousands of acres that need conifer reduction, and you're holding loppers in your hand, boy, talk about a volcano of salt, I'll tell you what. It's just overwhelming. It is. So the cool thing about it is we're on the ground, we're doing studies, we're trying to figure out the most efficient way of doing it. And that's what makes it doable, is we know, hey, this is a problem, we're addressing it. Are we doing it the right way? Maybe not, but we're doing it. And that's the big thing. We're doing it. Okay, next one. You can skip that slide. Everybody knows about conifer encroachment, I think.
Yeah.
Keep going. Okay, zeolite. Do you guys know about zeolite? Mesic structures? Cool. Yep. Yeah, these are great. Look at that pile of rock, right? Doesn't that sound like fun to move and dig out all the dirt and then place like bricks in the soil?
It's beautiful.
It is beautiful.
That is beautiful.
In fact, I want to actually start, as an artist, I look at this, I'm like, I want to get different stripes of rocks and turn it into artwork. You know, I think that's really,
That's next level.
that's next level. Yeah. So again, this is very physical. They're learning a lot. They can have a lot about the flow, the physics of water, how you slow it, how you store sediment, how you protect plant roots. So there's a lot of thinking, but it's also very playful and construction-like. It's building, just like bricks. Okay. Here they are working. There's false enthusiasm on the right. I always encourage that. If you can't be happy, just fake it. I'm dead inside. Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay. Yeah, so here they are. We got our top models laying down there. They're on the trail. This trail was a hard one for me. I'm not an ATV user, and this was over in Idaho, and it was an ATV route. And it was hard because the degradation was so widespread. It was a route that hadn't really been managed for really the Forest Service. I don't think maybe 40, 50 years ago did a small attempt. There's places where it's 12 feet, 15 feet across of just different paths of motorcycles mostly. So we tried to kind of contain them and do a lot of restoration, but there were some sections that just needed to be flattened. They were just too vertical and we couldn't really do anything. So that's a hard project. Okay, next one. It doesn't look as steep here. They call this the death hill or whatever. It's funny when you take a photograph, it doesn't look that steep. But that, we actually did break two trucks on that little section. Okay. Next, and this is last week, right? Yeah, look at Ben up there in the top left. He's doing good work. Yeah. Doing the small stream restoration is one of the most rewarding things that we do all year. And part of it is because we started in Reservoir Creek. I did one last year and went to check it out. And I cannot believe the sediment load that these structures are catching. They're full. And the aspen has turned around in 1 year. There's a third more aspen up there. And the aspen looks so much more happy. I mean, it is unbelievable how fast and effective these structures are. So it's great to be effective. It's great to see your work.
Yep.
Move that quick. Yeah. Oh, but this is Brown's, and you can see this inside. It's not just the inside, it's undercut. I don't know about you guys. I'm sure a lot of people know more about this, but the work we were doing in there, I got some real questions about how long our structure's gonna last, because if that soil was so we call friable or whatever, it just move. All right, next slides. Oh, so this is some bee surveys again. One thing I love about our job is we have specialists for the Forest Service working with. You've got a vet who's a conservation biologist in his third year. She's a high school student, she's in college, and another graduate. So they're all working alongside. You can have a 15-year-old working with Jim McGee, who does every year. So I just think that structure is wonderful, where it doesn't matter how much you know, you're just part of the team. It's great. And this is volunteer day. I'm really big on volunteer days. One of my goals is to help teach my employees about conservation and the projects we do. The other goal I have is to get that knowledge out into the community. And so here's one of our youngest volunteers. He did great with moving the big rock. All right, next slide. And this is my baby. This is my dream. And I was just talking to Pedro about this, about the idea of conservation. I love the ability to go out and work in the landscape as a job, do conservation. And then when I come home, I want to teach my employees how when they go home, they can live in a way that also instills those principles of conservation. So I built an earthship 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I don't have pictures up of my house, but it's passive solar, reuses gray water, has a greenhouse attached so I can grow a lot of food. I really try and think about, by the way, an earthship's built out of tires. And I use a lot of the wood inside my house is locally milled. So moving forward, what I'd like to be doing, I do have my employees work on my house for a couple weeks so they can learn. I pay them. So I'm gonna be back there like, oh, that scumbag, yes, scumbag. But I'm a scumbag who pays my employees. So I'm on board sometimes. Okay. Okay. So yeah, they come in and I teach them about how to make bottle walls, how to make can walls, how to build the tires. And you insulate, so you have thermal mass to insulate it. It takes a lot less heat it takes no energy to cool, it takes less heat to heat in the winter because of the passive solar design. Yeah, so that's the next stage. That's what I really want to bring to you in the coming years. But I'm writing grants and looking for other supporters to help me do it. Cool. Is there any questions? That's all for slides. Yeah, I did kind of pretty good. I was shooting for.
Oh, you got 5 more slides in here.
Oh, I do?
You
Oh,
do.
go to the next one. Oh, yeah, Selway. You guys want to see Selway? We can talk shit about Matt because he's not here. Okay. Matt's a good friend of mine, sorry. Yeah, that's just Selway drink cans. You guys don't guys. Go to the next one. Yeah, you know what? Let's end on Earthships. That was the one. You know? I should mic drop. That's not your mic. All right. Do you guys have any questions?
Boy.
How many employees?
So I had 18, well, 19, really, 19. Well, I kept 18. There was one person who popped in, and then there was one person who worked for me for 3 weeks. A lot of times, like the agencies with the BLM last year, they had a hard time hiring. So I hired them, did some training, and then they worked for the BLM. I was technically their manager, but they just worked for the BLM. And sometimes we do that with the Forest Service. We really try and work with our partners to figure out, hey, what kind of work do you need done? How can we get it done? That's our goal. So, yeah. So we had 18 full-time employees through the summer.
Through the summer season.
Through the summer, yeah. I guess I'm up to now 21, but it was only 18 at a time. That's important.
Are you going to increase the number of rates?
Man, I got the labor, I got the work. I mean, the work is there. But right now, I've only got 3 vehicles. Some of them, like I said, that one hill took out one of them. You know, it's like they're driving a 96 Ford. You know, like this thing is like, I had 2 vehicles, my personal vehicles, my employees driving them, and I wasn't even working that week. So this is the kind of, and I was talking to Pedro about it, like, you know, it's your baby, you want it to work, you're just trying to figure out the funding has to come from somewhere. And I can't physically grow. I'm not even sure if I could repeat this last summer.
Right.
You know, so I'm just trying to kind of document success and then figure out how to get that funding. Because people love this work. They love it. They know, yeah, these are youth. We want to train them to work in the landscape. We want to show them, not show them. We want them to see the path for themselves, you know, live the path for themselves. That's what they're doing. They're living the path that says, hey, if I work hard, I'm seeing other people work hard, they're working in the landscape, doing conservation work that I want to do. And that's how you do it. I'm living it. So it's not something I'm telling, because you know, you tell a 15-year-old anything, and you know what? They just roll over. Because I would if I was listening to me too. I mean, yeah.
When you're on the like Continental Wild Trail working, you just camp out there.
Yeah. We're, you know, in fact, we were an hour and we were camping out on the Idaho side, and we were still an hour and a half from the ridge that we were working on. And that steep section, which was just, it takes you so long. In fact, there was one week where we got 15 hours of actual work. And I was so mad. I was like, you can't do 15 hours in a 40-hour week on the trail. So it is, but it's those challenges, you know, lightning happens, wind happens, cars break down, trucks break down. So how do you do it? Yeah. Oh, that's a great question. So Steel Reach has given us a grant. DNC they're very strong partners. They pay we were talking about wages, they pay as a program manager, my development wage to develop this program, very strong supporters. So, and then a lot of Steve Adams, who's developed this over in Salmon, has written lots of grants, and these vehicles are kind of on the last thing. The grant items are gone on those, and he's just given the old equipment to make it work. Yeah, and so he's actually between those two partners, that's just basically BLM has given us a grant. Yeah, so.
But then you're also getting paid by the contracts.
Yes, they are. I charge, and what I try and do when I charge is pay for the labor. So you're let's say whatever the partner is, if it's big Watershed, which for the last 2 weeks, they would pay for all the labor, and they pay for, you know, basic government rate for vehicles, which is enough for maintenance and gas, hopefully, and supplies, but none of the overhead or the office or all the really development of the program or any of the things it takes to run a business. That's, I gotta find that money, geez, yeah. Good question.
So private people want to take you become a both sense.
Yeah, now that's a good question. You know, it's funny because I had a lot of, when we were doing a fence up in the big hole and with Jimmy B, and I had a private contractor come and they were seeing my Sawyers and they're like, how much is he paying you? He's only paying you that? Oh no, like, come on. I'm like, please scale with my work. So, that's a side note, but it's kind of related. We have done things, we did a CGI structure and PDAs on private ranches before, yeah. And usually it's due to nature conservancy. We would do it with conservation. I don't think we don't use straight fences. You know, that's not our goal. It's conservation or recreation is a smaller component, and I like it that way. But I like recreation as part of it because we're out here, let's recreate. And then conservation is the main thing of it. And it's a conservation project, yes. Go.
Like wildlife movement or something, if you know that the fence is related to improving wildlife passage or movement or something like that, then
we'll do your fence. Just like that, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a little bit in the spring and fall, but you know, it's mostly college students, high school students. And you know, I've got 3 employees right now, but that's down from 18. It's nice, actually. But, yeah.
Awesome.
All right, any other questions, you guys? Oh, yeah.
How about work comp?
Yeah, they're all covered. And that's another expense that is just, yeah, it's hard to cover. But yeah, we do workman's comp, and we have insurance, all both board, you know. You got youth there, so it's like, it's gotta be above board, you know.
They're program chainsaw.
Oh, yeah, and only 18 and older gets soft sort of training. So you gotta be 18, yeah. In fact, if you're under 18, you just get hand tools, you know, shelters and stuff like that. But you can do a lot of damage with that too, actually. CDAC structures, they tend to want to roll rocks. Like, no, don't roll it, don't throw those rocks. Bring them to me. Okay, yeah. Is there any other questions, you guys? Hey, thanks for being a great audience, okay?
All right, thanks, Nolan, thank you.
This guy's having babies and he's getting older, I'm getting older. Like this, we need
we need the next generation of folks that are willing to get down in the dirt and do this. Thank you, everybody. We'll close out now, and we will see you next month. Next month is sage grouse. Right, we'll have our wildlife update on the sage grouse program. I think Jimmy and Dana potentially. Awesome, and we'll see you here. What's the date? Do you know? October 19th. And you'll hear from me on the fishing regs and all of that, and y'all drive safe. Thank you again for coming. Maps are here, and take care. Thank you. Awesome, dude. That's so cool.